There was an interview done with an actor. I don't remember the name, like always. Uh, but the interviewer was asking what is the biggest lie that he was told, and he said that it's not that simple. And then she gave him a look, and she was like, "What's not?" And he said, "No, that's the biggest lie that I was told." And he went on elaborating that we were all told a lie, or the same lie at least, in some point in our lives, that life is not that simple, and that everything is going on around us is not that simple. But what he actually meant, since it's a lie, is that everything is actually quite simple. And I'm pretty sure we've mentioned this before in the podcast multiple times, but we've never gotten really into the depth of it. And it's something that's been going on in my mind lately a lot. So I thought that we would do it this episode.
A full-on episode on it. Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead and ask you, how do we overcomplicate things?
I think you can give many examples for this, but you can see it from the most simple ones that, like, something happens. For example, you have a toothache, you have some pain, and you start to make a story about it, about this pain. What's going to happen if you don't go to the doctor, and that you need to make an appointment, and what will happen if you're going to miss work, and this and this. We start to create this big story in our heads about something that is very simple, which is you got a pain that you got to resolve. Very simple. You make the appointment, you go, you resolve the pain, and the problem is over. And I think it is all based on stories in our heads. That's how we complicate things that are in the objective reality are very simple, are just like 1 + 1 equals 2. There's nothing more to it. But in our heads, we make it about something much bigger than that, even though it's really not. So I guess that's how it happens. It's usually just some overthinking mixed with anxiety, with fears. It's just so many things playing a role in why we complicate things, I guess.
It's like you said, there's many factors that play a role in there, which you've already mentioned them: overthinking, anxiety, procrastinations, fears, worries, just life in general, because life is random. And I think that would fit, like, when somebody says life is complicated, I usually think that life is random. I don't think that they mean actually complicated. I think they mean that it's random.
Too many things happen outside of your control.
Exactly. So it's like you want to go from point A to point B, doesn't matter where the road is, and you know that you just got to go this road to get to point B. So it is not that complicated.
Yeah.
But when people say it's complicated, it's because when you're going on this road, I don't know, say there's an accident, say you got to take a little bit of a detour, maybe you got to take a turn, whatever you want to call it, till you get to point B.
But that kind of makes sense, because that's where the complication comes in our heads. We're afraid of these things that could happen.
But it's not complicated per se, because life is just random, and a lot of things are going to happen outside of our control. And to go from point A to point B, so like, say there was this scene from some comedy show or comedy movie where the guy goes like, I've got a simple book for life. You want to lose fat, you just got to work out fatty. You want to be rich, you just got to work your ass off. You want to do this, you just got to do this. And what the character was trying to portray in that moment was simply that for every problem, there's a solution. And if there's no solution, then there's no problem in the first place. And it's always like, I want to do this. How do I get to this? This is the simple road.
Yeah.
Sure, it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy road, just like any road on the planet, but it's not complicated. We just tend to complicate it in our heads because we over-worry, we overthink, like we've said. It's like, okay, what will I do if this or this happens? But you don't even know if this or this are going to happen. You're just making the assumptions that a lot of stuff are going to come out along the way and make it complicated. Or if you're taking the dentist problem, the toothache problem, as an example, you got a toothache, you call the dentist.
Yeah.
This is the solution. But then people start thinking about it. Oh no, I have to find a dentist. I have to find their numbers. I have to call them. I have to make an appointment, and I have to remember the appointment. And I have to go there on the appointment, and I have to talk with them. It's like, no, it's all very minor steps to get to it. But I think all these steps are like maybe 5-10 minutes of work.
I guess you can sum it all up by just one word, which is emotions. Because when we talk about these problems and how simple they really are, this is more intellectually. As you said, like you call the dentist, you go to resolve the problem. But all of these complications that we make are based from our emotions, whether it's anxiety or worry, whatever it is. It's more of an emotional problem. And actually, Mark Manson talks a lot about this, how so many things that we want to do, that we want to achieve in life, are simple. Like you want to lose weight, you want to have a little more money, you want to have good friendships. But what stops us from achieving all of these things are certain emotions that hold us back, because these emotions manifest these different stories in our head and the complications. I feel like just due to the fact that life is random, that's where we get these complications. So I didn't mean that life is complicated, but because it is random, we start to get these emotions and thoughts because we're afraid of all of these different things happening in that moment that we don't want to happen. We want to have control. We want that things go in our way and not some other way that is outside of our control. So it's really all about emotions in a sense.
It is, but there's also more perspectives to that. So like, for example, the other perspective is to the emotional side of the equation, if that's what we're going to call it. I don't know why I'm stuck with the word equation here, but it feels good when you have a simple problem and the solution is very simple and you do it. It just like, oh, okay,
now
it's done. But when you've got a problem and you overcomplicate the solution, or you have a goal that you want to get to and you overcomplicate the way, and you go through that struggle and,
it's
the
like
hardships,
you kind of worked harder for it.
Exactly. And then at the end of it, it's like, I finally made it. I got what I wanted. And you feel that pride in yourself, that dopamine hit, that serotonin, this kind of, it's me who made it, not somebody else. So that part of it also plays a huge role, because I notice it not only in myself, but I notice it in a lot of people as well. It makes you feel good and it boosts your ego, which is something that we always, as time goes on, I'm realizing that we're always looking for areas or things where we can use our advantage to boost our own egos and confidence in ourselves.
But I guess you can say that not just about our problems in life, but about life in general. Maybe we don't like that life is simple. We don't like the fact that life is random and that we exist because of some coincidence or accident. We like to make stories. We like to make
definitely
some bigger meaning, that we are most important, that we are. So I think you're right. It's really based on the ego, in a sense.
Look at it like this: if life is simple, and if we were to admit that life is simple and everything around us is actually quite simple or random, then a lot of questions will also pop up in your head. Is it really worth living then? Why am I going through all this suffering, through this pain? Why am I even trying so hard? What's the point of it all? And what is the meaning of life then? Because if it's that simple and it is quite random, if we admit to that part, then there's an endless amount of questions that we've got to answer, because if we don't, our perception of reality will kind of crumble.
But I guess that's also why many people hate realism and science, in a sense, because these two things kind of show you that many of the things or the stories that you have in your head are not necessarily true. So they kind of contradict what you want to believe in. And you can say the same about the problems, that the solution is very simple, but you want to make it more exciting, more there's an adventure in this little thing that you need to do, instead of like just actionable steps that are pretty boring.
Definitely, because it also makes life more fun. It adds a little bit of spices to it. I just like as
we've talked about this before.
Mark Manson talked about this as well when he said that. No, not Mark Manson. Ali Abdul. Yeah, exactly. He talked about making it fun. It's one of his rules.
That's what I've been thinking about now.
So
when it comes to problems,
if it's simple, then it's not fun. It's just like when you're playing in a game. Let's say you're really good at some video game, and you start smurfing. When you're smurfing again, the game is not fun. So you get bored because it's quite easy.
When you're putting cheat codes,
exactly.
I've always hated the idea of cheat codes
because it makes it easier. Like, okay, I want to do this.
What's
so
the point?
You just do it. It takes the essence of it it takes the essence away. So we kind of need to complicate it. So we've got something that we're grinding for, something that we're going after, something that we have to suffer to get.
Yeah. But in a sense, this is kind of contradictory, because if it is better to understand that our problems are simple, yet we still like to complicate them because it is more fun, then what are the benefits of understanding that everything that we need to do is kind of simple in essence, or that life is simple? Like, why do you think, or do you even think that it is better to understand that life is simple, or is it better to stay in this way of like complicating life, complicating your problems and your relationships, and living in this never-ending dramatic events, I guess, that you're just going through in your head?
I think it's not like it's up to us whether we want to accept that or not. I think we all overcomplicate it and put ourselves through a lot of.
But is it necessary
pain?
to overcomplicate?
And at some point, I guess we just gotta come to terms with it and accept it. Is it necessarily? I guess so. It's one of life's lessons that everyone goes through and everybody gotta learn at some point. Because if you don't, it's again the yin and yang. If you don't overcomplicate it, you will never know that it's simple. And when you overcomplicate it, you will come to the realization that it's simple. And when you accept that life is simple,
oh God,
I think that's when you can have a little bit more agency, a little bit more contentment with life.
So this is again about balance. Like every other episode, we have to go to the
not necessarily balance, but it's something that I've been like I've mentioned this in the last episode or the episode before, that when you declare yourself as something, you attract everything that is not.
Sure.
And when you think about that, it is a true statement, because when you say that, okay, I am this kind of person, this kind of person only exists in relation to everything else that is not this person, in opposition to this persona that you created. And everything else is going to try to come in because you're fighting it. And as time goes on, it's like you're kind of filtering out the things that don't fit in this persona that you want, or this personality that you want to have, until you end up with what you want to have. So it's like everything starts in opposition to how it ends.
Yeah.
So if we start
if you are overcomplicating things, that's
you will
how you
realize
start to
at
learn.
some point that life is
so
simple.
It is something that we all have to go through.
It's not we all have to go through. It's something that we all will go through.
We have in a sense that we have no choice in the beginning. You know, like this is how we are wired.
I am a firm believer of that. Yes.
So when we go through that stage, at some point we realize that we are overcomplicating things, and we start to maybe unlearn that or go against our nature, go against what we are usually susceptible to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is necessary to go through all of this, but then, as you know, I struggle with this. Many other people struggle who are even much older, that they're still complicating their lives, even though they've reached 40 or they have reached 50, that they're still, I guess, not realizing that life is simple. What do you think hold certain people from realizing that? Like, I know for myself, I understand that life is simple in many ways, but in some other areas where it comes to friendships, relationships, that sometimes comes a problem that is very simple, and I still overcomplicate it in my head and create a story. And that's like an area where I still don't realize that things are simple, even though in other areas I do. So what do you think holds people back from realizing things when it comes to the simplicity of life?
I don't think it's because when it comes to I think even when you realize that life is simple, you will still complicate some things.
Because of our emotions, I guess.
Not only this, it's because emotions are one of the biggest factors. But again, we were back to the ego boost, to the confidence. If life is simple and we're doing everything simply and everything is working out, then your ego is gonna be like, okay, why am I even here if you're doing everything without needing any kind of help from me? So we end up overcomplicating some things, to give ourselves ego boost, and we do that subconsciously. Number two is the emotions, because for some things we have our inner values, we have our inner this and this, and especially when it comes to friendships and relationships and maybe interaction with other human beings. There is our inner values, there's our point of views, our perspectives on things that could clash with other people, and that could cause us to feel like we might get harmed here. That could cause us to feel a bit of distrust, and that would take us into the other direction than we are.
It's all narratives that we are basing in our thoughts, in our heads,
but
that are probably not the true reality.
Mhm.
That maybe you have a conflict with someone, you start to have certain thoughts, and they
Mhm.
have certain thoughts because of the clash that happened, and you're both creating different narratives that are
Mhm.
unrelated to the real narrative, the real thing that probably happened. Which is very simple.
Every human interaction.
Yeah.
Every single human interaction.
Now I realize how many problems in the world would be actually resolved if people simplified the conflicts, the problems that are happening,
Not
instead
only
of
this,
building a narrative and believing in this narrative and making other people believe in it. It's a different story, but I feel like it's pretty related.
Yeah. It is kind of the same, but
Yeah.
we're just kind of taking it
It's a bigger
in a majority or a group of people
global
instead
way.
of individuality.
Yeah.
Do I think it's possible to be? Do I think it's possible that you can come to the terms with the fact that it's simple
Mhm.
and always take the simple way out, or the simple way in, depending on your situation, I guess. It probably is. You can see it in many people as well. I would probably take Alan Watts as an example here,
Mhm.
from the personality that I've noticed in him, at least so far. I don't know him. Of course I don't. I just know him through the internet, through his not podcasts, through his lectures and recordings and all of this. He seems like someone who doesn't overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
He seems like someone who is always going with the simple way. But I'm pretty sure that he had to be, or had went through the complete opposite of that till he reached that point. It's like you gotta get rid of the ego and your perception, and you're giving yourself completely and truly to nature,
which is like the highest state that is sometimes really hard to attain for most people.
It is.
Mhm.
It is. Is it possible? Again, I'm just repeating myself here. I do think so. How to get there?
Okay.
I think that's something that people figure out with time.
I think it is completely possible, but I have another theory that since this energy or this need to complicate things
Mhm.
come from our biology, maybe with time it is not that we start to think that life is simple.
Mhm.
It's just that we start to channel this energy to have drama, to have like complicated problems in other areas. Maybe, for example, I used to have it in other areas in life. Now I have it a lot in relationships still, and maybe when I want to work on a video, on a script, that I overcomplicate certain things so that it is harder for me to find the solution, and it is more fun. So maybe I am just channeling it in just another area in life.
But are you actually overcomplicating things? Because when you're talking about your videos, and I'm assuming here you're talking about your own YouTube channel, I don't think that you overcomplicate things. I think it's just that you hold yourself to high standards. And these are not
both. I think it's both.
You know yourself better than I do know you. But I think these two are different, because when you're holding yourself to high standards, you're expecting better results from yourself. But when you overcomplicate things, then it's different process. And from what I've noticed so far,
sometimes I kind of overcomplicate the process to reach an answer to what I want to do in the video, for example, where maybe there was another path that was much more simple. But as you said, these things, we do them subconsciously, so sometimes we're not aware of it. And you also notice it in me in other areas where I overcomplicate things in my life that the solution for is just like right there, you know, whether it's while I'm working or this or that. Yeah, so I think it just maybe manifests in a different way in different individuals, maybe.
Definitely.
That's my theory, I guess.
Everyone would manifest it in different areas of their life. But I think did you mean that you would, like, you overcomplicate an area of your life, and when you stop overcomplicating this, you start overcomplicating something else?
Yeah.
Is this
like maybe it's just the energy that is being channeled in a different way? This need to challenge yourself, I guess, because it's kind of related to that. That's why
perhaps
you know.
Perhaps I'm
maybe we're going off topic here, but I
I'm
feel
not
like
really entirely sure about it, but that could be maybe because when you stop overcomplicating one area, now the energy or your brain has the capacity to overcomplicate something else. But I don't think is that the energy goes from this to this. I think that you had like, say, this is your life, and you have like this bigger section of it that you overcomplicate, and a small section that you don't overcomplicate. And you usually overcomplicate this part of your life,
Yeah.
and once you stop overcomplicating this,
it maybe,
now you have the space to go there.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you're gonna stop overcomplicating something new.
Not necessarily.
You know what I
not
mean?
necessarily. Just that your brain needs to let that out somewhere, I guess, in the different areas in
Perhaps,
your life.
probably
Maybe.
even.
Because you can see it in different individuals that for certain things they see things very simply and in a very straightforward way, but in other things there's just even the way they talk about these things is very complicated. For some people spirituality is very simple. For other people spirituality is really complicated, and they even make it more complicated than what it really is. Same with religions, same with how you perceive nature and people, just anything in life, I would say.
You can't forget that perception, experience, suffering, past, trauma,
all play a role.
The expectations of the future all matter there, because you only overcomplicate the things that you actually care about. Because if you don't care, like if you don't care how to clean your room, I'm just taking a very simple example here, you wouldn't really overcomplicate it. You just grab the stuff that you need to clean, and then you just clean it. But when you care about your videos, for example, there's a thinking process that's going on. There's emotions that are connected to it. So the chances that you'll overcomplicate what you care about are way higher than overcomplicated what you don't care about.
Now I've noticed kind of a connection that maybe it's through the connection between complicating things and procrastinations. Like maybe we overcomplicate certain tasks or problems
so we can procrastinate.
We can procrastinate because we can't deal with it right now. There's this factor and this factor and that factor that are standing in the way, while they are just excuses that you don't have to think about in order to solve this problem. And I see that even in my life, how it happens in many different ways. So maybe there is actually a big correlation between procrastination and overcomplicating.
There is.
It's kind of interesting.
It's you overcomplicate things because you want to procrastinate, or because you are looking for an excuse out. You're looking for you're afraid of, I don't know, there's many different type of fears here that can, or that would correlate or maybe fit in the situation. There's the emotions, there's the confidence, the ego boost. It's that overcomplicating things, like we said, it adds spice to life. It makes a lot of things more fun and allows us to take easy ways out, or maybe easy ways in, depending on, again, what we're doing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you can still take it from different perspectives, because as you said, it adds spices to life. So you want to engage with something more complicated, but at the same time, the other end of the spectrum, you complicate things so that you can avoid these certain problems. So I guess there's two different ways to really look at it. But I think this is something we need to talk about in a future episode. Procrastinations. We've talked about it in many other episodes, like indirectly, but I feel like this is something we should talk about.
It could be a bigger topic, and
in a full episode.
Could use a little
There's
bit more
so much
attention
to say here.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.